Piers Fawkes. I'm sure that many of you know him. He's the founder and editor-in-chief of PSFK.com. And I think that you're a lot in the press. You're well known to many of our guests. And another thing is that what I really found interesting was this article, The Death of Luxury. I'd like you just to introduce yourself briefly, or a little talk, mini talk, and also just summarize why you wrote this report and what can we learn from it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. How are we doing? So my name is Piers Fawkes. I'm a New York City-based innovation consultant, I guess. And I help companies like Google, Nike, Red Bull, come up with new products, new ideas, new retail. And as I think about things, we have a daily website where we share new ideas. I came to this, I decided to write this article because I was talking to, or at least pitching to a bunch of luxury brands about the future of their business, the future of the product experience, the retail experience. And there were two big things that I saw happening. It was happening across mainstream industries as much as luxury industries. The first one's about how people seem to be far more interested in experience over ownership. People are more interested in sharing a photograph of them hiking in North Carolina on their Facebook page than to actually own a shiny object that sits around their wrist. The picture says more about them than the actual product these days. And the second idea is around, so that was a kind of societal force that I see happening. And then the second one is a technological force. So technology and these kind of services, a lot of these Silicon Valley services provide a level of service and experience that is far beyond most product offerings, especially luxury product offerings. I know more about where my taxi driver is, what his rating is, who he is, than I do about the products maybe that I bought, where they're shipped, whether my customers, my store associate definitely has far less information about me and the products she sells. And I think these kind of two big forces are reshaping what we think about luxury and a luxurious experience.
Absolutely, very, very interesting. Anna, I was very inspired. I spoke to Anna. I was in Cannes yesterday, the day before yesterday, 24 hours, not very green, I'm afraid, but in and out. And we spoke over the phone. Anna is the head of communication at Aman Resorts. And the first thing we bonded over was actually that we both read this article about that perhaps luxury, the word luxury, should be deleted from the dictionary because it's perhaps the most overused, overrated word. It means everything and nothing in the same. And I think it's also what you're saying, Piers. We are moving towards a new definition. Now, Anna, many of us dream of staying in one of those Aman resorts. It's secret, more or less. People go there to hide, you told me. And what you offer in this hotel is very much valued, sort of value-driven experiences rather than ownership. First of all, I'd like to know, how did you land in that job? Because it must be a dream job. And also, why is it that you, as a hotel group, is so different to what the rest of the hotel chains are offering?
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. How did I become involved with Aman? I think I've probably got one of the best jobs in the world. It's something I'm incredibly passionate about. And I studied business management with tourism management at university and spent more than a decade with Orient Express, now known as Belmond. So worked with some incredible experiences there. And I think similar to our collection, it's all about those experiences and providing the intangible. I then was part of the executive team opening up Rosewood London, and I spent a year and a half handed over my life and really devoted it to making that hotel the great hotel that it is today. And I think immediately it became a core part of sort of London's sort of top hotels, if you will. So I was approached by a headhunter and jumped at the chance and did everything that I could to secure it. So about 14 months later, here I am. And I joined at the time when the brand was going through a few changes, as I'm sure everybody knows. And you know, we've been around since 1988, and we had the most incredible visionary. And for me, you know, I see myself as protecting the brand first and foremost. So we don't use the word luxury. We really try and push that away from what we offer. We have a collection of 30 resorts, and it's the anti-luxury. It's about going away. It's finding your inner self and remembering who you are and what's important in life. And it's perhaps not about having the biggest diamonds or the biggest watch, as you were saying, but it's about finding yourself, finding your inner happiness, spending time with friends or loved ones. And I think also we forget about the importance of culture and the world and the incredible world that we live in. And our resorts are spread across the globe, and they're really all about destination first and foremost, about architecture and design, which people love, and sometimes they like being in a museum, sometimes they're very, quite Scandinavian actually in their design, very less is more. And it's about giving people back privacy, intimacy, space. And I think that's where we're different. We don't want to be the biggest. We have only about 1,000 hotel rooms, if you will, across the collection of 30. So we're quite small. We're very, very intimate. So it's almost like a members club.
I got very inspired. In fact, the new owner is Russian.
Correct.
He joined as a client, and when he's actually from a quite, I would say, average background, and when he got incredibly wealthy, he ended up buying his favorite hotel, and it's now expanding it.
Exactly.
And the other story I read in that is that I think one of the new directors is quoted for, it was in The Independent I came across this, that in fact, I think what it was, luxury can be bought, but style has to be owned, like something you're born with.
Exactly.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. I completely agree.
Aaron,
hello.
You are the group chairman and founder, somebody wrote this for me, it's very good, an award-winning luxury lifestyle management and concierge service firm, Quintessentially Lifestyle. Do you want to tell us a little bit about, briefly, sort of what you offer to your member, and also how you design your services to attract some of the most affluent and selective people around the world?
Hello, everybody. I own a company called Quintessentially. We're a group of 23 companies. We operate in 80 countries. We employ 3,000 people. And we started it 15 years ago. We service not just the very wealthy, although we look after some very, very wealthy people, but we look after 3 tiers of individuals, people that we think are inspirational, thought leaders, who we think will educate and inform the future of our industry and their own industries, from architecture to art to car design to whatever, to entrepreneurs, CEOs of major corporations, and oligarchs and royal family members. And we've aggregated that into a group of companies that service from aviation, from private jets to private yachts, to wine club, to a recruitment company, to a venture platform. So we have a group of companies that's full service, very, very wealthy, but also the people that we think will be the future leaders. In terms of aggregating those people, in the world there's around 250,000 people that have about $40 million of wealth in liquid form, and we probably service a good half of those people. So we're pretty influential in terms of the spend in luxury, in the luxury arena. We have a company called Q&Co which just does brand agency work around matching brands with high net and ultra high net worth individuals. And we do that through behavioral data. So our members, we call them our members, we're a club, they request around 6 million things from us a year. And that could be anything from a dog walker in Milan to organise my wedding in the south of France. And we aggregate that data and inform brands on how to appeal to those high nets and ultra high net worth individuals. So that's our business.
Interesting. So you're very much the sort of curator states and the connoisseurship, that's sort of the trend.
Yeah, we curate around 1 million bits of information a year to our clients.
Wow.
And we find the unusual, the extraordinary. We seek out that. I was talking about a cobbler in Northern Hampton who just does 10 bespoke pairs of shoes to, Chanel's latest, rucksack that they launch. And we're the second biggest purveyor of Hermes handbags in the world after Hermes. And we seek the finest things in life, but also the unusual and things that people inspire people and experiential stuff. We talk about experience a lot, but that fly and flop mentality of holidays where you go to Barbados and end up on a beach for 2 weeks. People now want to jet ski off the highest mountain in the world or whatever it is. Jet ski, I'm not talking about ski off the highest mountain.
So you're very much...
Try to jet ski if you want.
So you're very much the person, if I can afford it, but this is not what I want. I want you to find the things that I can't find.
Well, for instance, right now we have 50 clients in 20 tuk-tuks going across India for an elephant foundation. We're raising $5 million for the Elephant Foundation. And it's, you've got 17 billionaires in back of tuk-tuks. Cost 5,000 quid. It's accessible, but it's an experience that they're going through the Diwali festivals as well. So they're stopping off in different places and having an immersive experience. So that's what we do.
Very inspiring. We will talk about that a little bit later, Aman. Guy Salter, Group Chairman and Founder. No, sorry, excuse me. Just reading off without. Thinking, chairman of London Craft Week and deputy chairman at Walpole. Spoke briefly the other day, I was in a car driving, and I was very impressed because I was actually lucky that I got you said, you have 5 minutes, I'm off to an event. But what was very interesting is really to hear about your passion for craft. Obviously, you have Walpole, as many of you might know, he was famous for his promotion of overseas trades 300 years ago and laid the foundation for an era of prosperity and peace in Britain. Now, your organizations, of course, represent British excellence and also its wonderful craft and heritage, which I've been in London for 25 years, have experienced that the Brits have something the rest of the world haven't got. And also, I think what is interesting, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that luxury has changed tremendously since Walpole's days. But can you just introduce us a little bit to your work, what you do, and also talk to us a little bit about where you see tomorrow's luxury going?
Yeah, sure. Well, hello, everyone. I guess I'm here with a sort of Walpole hat and a London Craft Week hat, and the latter is because I'm just sort of trying to raise the profile of London Craft Week because it's brand new. We only did it for the first time this May, and we'll be doing it again next May. But in a way, I think it's quite sort of topical for today's conversation because actually, although I don't kind of put it on the tin, I see it in my mind as a bit of a, let's say, beyond luxury experience. And again, of course, that begs this awful question about what does luxury mean and should we be using it? And hopefully we won't debate that too much because that's been going on for 20 years. But I suppose what I think about it is that, there are, I developed this idea quite a long time ago, what I call the discernment curve, which is this idea that luxury consumers, or whatever we're going to call them, people who buy luxury or buy luxury experiences, actually what drives the success of various different brands in luxury is less about what you might call the raw ability to spend, so how much money people have, but actually how people gain knowledge and sophistication and how that drives their choice of what brand or what they're going to spend their money on, or indeed that they've got enough shiny watches and now they're going to spend some money on some experiences. or that they're so rich and so bored that they're going to ring up Aaron and say, "What can you do for me, mate?" So I suppose the idea is that actually, during that whole kind of journey of what we now call luxury, which I believe is, by the way, very different from what people called luxury 150 years ago, but that actually the brands have become more and more important and almost become a shorthand for, yes, this gives me the prestige, yes, this gives me the quality. And that coupled with, obviously, around the world, lots and lots of very impressive looking stores kind of projecting the power of the brand. Actually, that there are a lot of people now coming up through the other end of that discernment curve who are looking, A, for something different, because they see the same brands and the same sort of streets pretty well everywhere, but also are open to the idea of finding Aaron's cobbler who only makes 12 pairs of shoes, or an amazing watchmaker I came across earlier this week who only makes 3 watches a year, and actually understanding that there's another whole experience out there, which is not just going into a store and buying something that's already made, but about commissioning, about real bespoke, and so on. And once you get into all of that, actually it's a completely different sort of experience, because you're putting as much as yourself into that object that you're commissioning as the person who's making it. So I suppose the idea there behind London Craft Week is that mix of the well-known, the less well-known, behind the scenes, how things are made, and all of that next level.
Absolutely. How interesting. Well, Robin, I've had the pleasure to speak to you on several occasions, because we, first of all, interviewed you for the report. Thank you for changing that. And you had some very inspiring quotes, I think, and also you have an amazing bio. You worked with Jaguar, Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Bugatti, and you're now one of the lead designers behind the amazing brand transformation at Volvo. Please, I would like to know a little bit about how luxury cars has been a part of your career, and now, of course, you work in England with those brands. Moving from that to Sweden, how is what's the difference between luxury as we know it and tomorrow's luxury and working with Volvo? Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, no problem. So hello everyone.
Have a video,
actually maybe do that a bit later.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
So get the people to stop it. So
put it back down.
Control, yes.
Can you do it? No? That's great. Now, I just wanted to explain this a bit, because certainly part of my heritage is in what they call the high luxury sector of car design. And when you work in that sector, it's a lot about heritage, materials, and tradition. So as a designer, it's nice to work with that, but you always are frustrated with futuristic innovation and challenging what we call modern luxury. So when the opportunity came up and Volvo approached me, I thought, yeah, this could be really interesting, because it's a chance for me as a designer to start exploring modern luxury and kind of challenging how we do things. I joined Volvo about 2.5 years ago. And when I did, I knew they were in a period of very fast change. So this is a time when they're replacing all their products in a very short time. And as a designer, that's a really interesting place to be, because that means there's lots of innovation and change and you can experiment. So that was really the driver there. And I have to say as well, Scandinavia has always been an interesting subject. On, I would say, most people's design influences, there's always a piece, a product design, architectural, maybe lifestyle influence on one of the influence boards when you start a new project. So I've always respected Scandinavian design, and I've always wanted to challenge modern luxury design, and that was a very attractive thing for me. Now, we've been playing a video, I don't know if you've noticed it on here and at the back, and my colleague said it might be good to show you and explain that video to you. It is actually 3 products. The first, the XC90, something we call the XC90 Excellence, which is a 4-seater, and something that we've tried as a concept that shows a bit of this innovation and future trend.
And I have been driving that in London, in the countryside, on the M25. That's bad slow, you're stuck. And then afterwards, about 30 miles of road work. But it did all of the tests. The only thing I didn't dare was the automatic parking. My goodness, I thought if I scratch this thing, it's not going to be good, you know. So I had it for 5 days, and wow, I want one.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's what we do. It might be easier for me just to stand up because I'm describing things in front of you. So if we can play the video, and let's just take you through that experience. So this is the XC90, which we have at the back of the stage. So, and you've been given a lift in that. For us, this was a chance really to connect with Scandinavian design. So we're thinking of using those principles of clean, well thought out, intelligent surface design. And then connecting with technology, because in the past, we've had lots of switches that we have to then design into the interior. Putting that into a touchscreen means that we can free up and stay true to Scandinavian design, which is about making the best of the materials. And then add into that some beautiful details. So these really nice, what we call jewels in the interior. And then, of course, this is a true family car. It's something for customers. So the seating is important, and that's very comfortable and to the latest technology. So these are the principles behind the XC90, which creates a beautiful environment. Now this video here is of the XC90 Excellence, which is a 4-seater where we've moved the front seats and put them into the rear. And then at the back of the seats is a glass screen, so you get the privacy. So this is more about being chauffeur-driven around the car. And then in the console we have the tables with the crystal glass made in Sweden. And in the center you've also got a fridge for your bottles, so that's champagne and water, a heating and cooler, so you can actually warm your drinks or cool them, and a touch screen to do that operation with, or to move the seat in front of you to create the space. Then in the console you can have a tea set or a different option, and that can be fitted into the tables. So overall that creates a very nice rear compartment that suits either being entertained or entertaining, and it's mainly focused around chauffeur driving. So then we started this and we actually questioned modern luxury then and said, well, what if we remove that front passenger seat and create for that very important person in the rear this feeling of space and luxury, and add even more feature into the car. And this was the idea of what we call the lounge console, which is basically an area where you can put your shoes in. You have a table that comes out, and that opens up then into a table you can prepare either your makeup or basically have a look in the mirror and prepare yourself for an important meeting. Then our chairman Lee in China challenged us and said, well, what if then we want to store some jewellery in there and have a lockable box? And taking that beyond as well, could this box actually turn then into something where we have a large TV screen and then sit back and relax and watch TV or connect with our work? So this is what we see as a challenge on modern luxury, providing something very special for a customer, making the best use of their time in the car. And I think that's something that Volvo is quite unique in challenging this way that we actually move luxury into the future.
I love it. I like to have the really Swedish one, which must be the one with the latte machine, right? Because remember, we drink so much coffee out there. Love it, you know. And obviously here, this is because you have a chauffeur. You don't need to drive the car yourself.
I mean, this was very much focused on China because we're seeing that most people are chauffeur-driven. But also that we find in the rest of the world, there is occasions where you want to take your friends out and entertain your friends. So providing them with a nice environment in the back. But of course the XC90 fulfills probably the needs of Europeans in terms of connecting for their family and providing luxury.
No drink and drive in this one, but it's going to be okay in this one here.
Champagne all around there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Now, so many interesting things to talk about and so little time, and I'm sure that you, the audience, also want to put a few questions forward. So I have about 100 questions, which I have reduced to about 7. So I'm going to give them into sort of 3 little blocks. And my idea is that I will present them, and then obviously feel free to answer. And the 3 first questions that I think sort of goes into one is, what are the main challenges for luxury brands in the future? And why will luxury brands perhaps have to innovate at increasingly speed? And also, how does technology and connectivity affect the expectation we will have tomorrow as customers of premium brands? So, Piers, you want to start? The challenges, why they have to innovate, and also a bit about technology. But feel free to sort of speak what you think about.
Well, I guess I talked about a couple of the challenges for luxury brands.
Yes.
I think one of the conversations that's taking place is, does a luxury brand have to have be a technology brand to have that connectivity? Should it be partnered with a technology brand, or should it actually do those things itself? Don't know if I know the answer, but I think there's a place for an analog product. There will always be a place for analog products, sure. But there's a sort of interest and demand of an experience with a brand that can around that analog product through the lifetime, before you purchase that product, and then through the lifetime of that product. And I think there's opportunity for luxury brands to engage their consumers and hopefully create loyalty and sell more products.
But are luxury brands innovative enough, Piers? I mean, do you think that I sort of said, they have to wake up and smell the coffee. I mean, is that...
In what extent how are you questioning their lack of innovation?
I think that we have confused innovation with more of the same, or a variation of new thinking can become, where is the new thinking? There are some brands, you mentioned that earlier when we were speaking here, that there are people who just have it naturally, it's in their DNA, but then they're all the copycat, the version of, and I'm just sort of thinking, would we see that maybe half of the luxury brands we see today will have to innovate or die?
Innovation's hard, and it's interesting talking to Guy. It'd be interesting to hear from Guy, because he's creating startups and smaller businesses. And it's obviously so much easier to create innovation in those companies. Most companies have, the innovator's dilemma. They can't create the change. They're shaped around developing a certain service or product.
Yeah, I sometimes think that, I'm all for knocking luxury brands from within, so to speak, and I've spent a lot of time kind of doing that and questioning, our approach to things and strategy and stuff. But I feel sometimes that it's kind of too easy to knock the industry as a whole. And I think this question about technology, for example, can be a bit of a red herring, because, it goes without saying, doesn't it, that you need to use every channel available to you, as a marketeer, for example. And actually, luxury brands have, for a very long time, proved that they completely get what effective marketing is. So, although there was a period where some were a bit slow off the mark in terms of understanding, the opportunity of e-commerce and so on, you can see that the best in class, just like Burberry, actually this week launching their Burberry Festive film, completely understand how to play that game. On the other side, and I'm not saying that Hermès are an example of people who don't understand digital, but Hermès, continues to be very successful. So innovation in the context of Hermès is clearly, again, a slightly different thing.
But they've just done this fantastic saddle for a horse that can be adjusted. So whatever horse you have, it can just be adjusted. So they obviously, Hermès is using technology brilliantly. And then, of course, what they do in the local context, they do a Chinese brand, which is a Chinese version of them. And went to the store, I was so impressed,
I think the question about innovation and luxury is actually I would argue that successful luxury brands have always innovated. Even going right the way back, to to Louis Vuitton himself, actually, who was originally a saddler, but was responding to the fact that there was a growth of, trains and steamboats and stuff like that, and there was a need for luggage, which just hadn't existed in that form before, trunks. But actually, I think that the real challenge facing luxury and the need to innovate is a much more tricky thing, which goes back to this point about people getting turned off by, too much of the same, too many brands, too many stores that are kind of trying to do something similar. And how do you actually manage to create or recreate an emotional connection with your customer, and not actually end up with all the stuff that you've been investing in, like big campaigns, celebrities, stores, getting in the way. And so actually, I think that's more the area that the brands need to innovate.
I think as well the brands, the difficulty thing with the luxury market is that every other brand is catching up with technology, reliability, safety. There's a level that before innovative and kind of technology was something that could be led by luxury, but now everyone can get up to that level. So the challenge is how to go beyond what that new level is, and with industries as well, for instance, with your iPhones and touchpads and everything, is that that's moving so quickly, and other industries are really, it's very hard to keep up with that fast-moving technology and provide something that is luxurious and innovative. And I think that's probably the challenge, certainly in the automotive world. That's a big challenge for everyone.
Can I add to that? 'Cause
Absolutely.
I don't think it's always about being innovative and finding the next new best thing. I think sometimes it's actually looking back and going back to the roots of the brand, the DNA. And I think there's almost too much noise out in everyday society. We all are completely bombarded by different marketing messages, and I think from brands I've worked with, and especially Aman, we would liken ourselves to Hermes, and perhaps Chanel, where we're not out there in the mass conversations. We choose the conversations that we want to be in, almost so much that people then are quite hungry to hear more from us, rather than, heard from them again, another update. So I think there's that balance, and I think you've got to be very, very confident in your brand, and know also who your core audience are. And I think from our point of view, we were very lucky early on that we had our loyal followers called Aman Junkies, and they named themselves. We did not coin it. Aman Junkies. They can't get enough of us, clearly. And they're very much the backbone of our business, and we constantly go back to who they are, what do they like, listen to their feedback, have that one-to-one interaction with them so that we don't stray too far from where we are and why they want to be with us. So I think there's this balance of trying to change everything, but at the same time keep it very static. And it's...
But you're in a very privileged position, right? Because Aman resorts are fabulous. They don't have to try very hard to promote themselves.
True.
You don't promote yourselves, actually. It's all word of mouth. And I don't think you've taken a single advert out anywhere, right?
No.
So, there are certain brands in the world that don't have to try, because they've got the heritage, they've got the established, they've just got that sort of ethereal fairy dust that you just can never get to as a brand in the next tier down. You have to spend your way. You'll never get a Chanel, Hermes. all these sort of top brands. So my thing about innovation in luxury is that luxury, and I do beat up the luxury industry a bit because I'm going to be a bit controversial, because otherwise it's, is that they're terrible at innovation. Luxury brands are shit at it. Frankly, because look at all the major brands in the world. They're scared of doing anything potentially that could blow them up, right? Look what's just happened with Hermes and the Birkin, Jane Birkin. That was like a world news. See how fast that went. Now that could have killed Hermes if it wasn't dealt with properly. That type of thing. That's almost innovative in the luxury world, right? And the adoption of the internet was so painfully slow. Try and buy a Cartier watch on the internet 7 years ago. You couldn't do it. Yeah, I mean, that terrible website, and I love cartoons, don't get me wrong. They're terrible, to scroll through thousands of pages to try and find something. You couldn't search on it, you couldn't do anything. Now, they've caught up a bit, but I personally think that innovation in luxury is done through fear.
Yeah.
And that's why my business is successful, because people look outside of the current, branded experiences that these companies offer. So, for instance, look, we had the 2008 crash. What did Louis Vuitton do? They came out with a bunch of philanthropic adverts. So they rode the crest of the wave around philanthropy. Smart, very clever. So they had, Coppola and his daughter sitting on suitcases, and Bono and his wife. But the consumer knows, understands what they're trying to achieve here. They're not daft. But that was innovative. It wasn't particularly innovative because the rest of the world was already doing it in many ways. So what my point is, I suppose, ultimately, is that if luxury wants to, the word luxury is a difficult word, but if bespoke is better and unique, I think these are better words, or limited supply, not even special edition, but that's because it's for the Ford Escort. But, limited supply where you are doing the bespoke watch for 10 individuals or, that type of thing. That's real immersive luxury experience.
Well, I think maybe. Sorry, just a quick kind of response
You from Carter?
to that. The thing here is, in a way, why are we asking the question, right? Because we think that somehow the more a luxury brand innovates, or anyone innovates, the better, or actually because we want to have the most successful businesses we can. So I think the thing is that the luxury formula, or whatever you call it, and we can talk about that later if we have time, is pretty straightforward. And actually, I do agree with Aaron's point about fear. I think a lot of the places that brands have made the wrong choices is out of fear, and sometimes it's fear of wanting to innovate more. Change, which has actually been the wrong thing to do.
Absolutely.
So, anyway, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, there's several points. I was really just going to criticise the world in which I come from, which is the world of media and journalism.
Yeah.
And in any good story, you have to have conflict. Now, I set up a very small editorial that is a minute version of Quintessentially in its smallest possible way. But, one of the things I noticed was that the world of luxury journalism and magazines, I wanted to try, in the smallest way whatsoever, was not to write wallpaper garbage. I think that the journalism that comes out about the luxury world is fairly appalling on the whole. And it's appalling because of the reason that you're talking about, which is to do with luxury brands. And I don't say this in any really, it is a critical comment, it's more an observant comment, is that everyone is very careful about the luxury world, their brand, keeping their brand, untainted. So that really, actually, journalists and brands and all the people within that conversation that are talking about this, there are very few people that actually stand up and actually really say anything controversial or antagonistic, partly because journalists know that no one's going to invite them back again if they say anything.
But I think that's in every aspect. You get Vogue interviews a film star, la la la. I mean, there's an unwritten law. I says I'm not a journalist, but you try not to criticise your advertisers. You try not to criticise. There's all those sorts of things. But I think the consumer does that now. So online, the consumer says, actually, this is absolute rubbish. So if I have a bad experience, which I'm sure no one ever has at an Aman,
we hope not.
and the key there is that then the brand becomes the journalist, right? Because they have to respond to that criticism. And the best brands deal with it very, very quickly and, offer a free trip or a refund, whatever it is. And, for me, the consumer is now becoming very much the critique of everything.
And they validate the brand, actually, rather than the other way around. And I think this is what you're also speaking about, Anna. We see that it was evident in our report
Well, it's
people are validating.
citizen journalism.
Yes, absolutely.
Everybody's got their iPhone, everybody has an opinion, and everybody, I think, wants to voice it. But, I mean, we choose not to engage in online conversations such as TripAdvisor because for us, it would devalue the brand. And where we do have issues, and any brand does, we would be able to recognise who that guest was by the date they stayed and perhaps by some kind of description online. So we're able to deal with it offline, personally, and rectify it that way. So, but maybe on the outside, people think, gosh, Aman, they don't engage in those conversations. We do, but we just don't choose to do it publicly. So it, again, protects privacy. And we hope that just rather than an insincere, sorry, you didn't enjoy yourself, blah, 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 actually we would do it much more on a one-to-one basis.
I think, funnily enough, I mean, because if we're talking about what are the real challenges for luxury, I mean, in the broader sense, maybe there is some issue with innovation or not innovating, but actually, I think that one of the challenges, which is a very interesting kind of point around this, is actually finding again that ability to look after people properly.
Yes.
What you might call the human face,
yes.
right? You're looking after people when they come into the store in the right way. I mean, obviously in a hotel experience, it kind of goes without saying. But I think that this is one of, for me, quite a number of examples where the luxury, or the so-called luxury sector, or what we call luxury now, has lost its way over the
Absolutely.
years.
Piers was saying that, that the person serving me with the product know next to nothing about the product, but a hell of a lot about me, but we can't have a conversation because, they don't even know what they're selling, And I think that is perhaps a thing that needs to be challenged in the future. And I think also what the conversation now, I think, brings us on to a little bit about the understanding and nature of luxury. Because I want to understand, is there a not only a cultural difference between how luxury is perceived, also Nordic versus British versus Asia versus Dubai or even Latin America? Are we seeing that there's a regional thing, local, global, think global, act local? Is there something around that? I mean, I like to turn a few things on Scandinavia. I'm the only Nordic here on this panel. But yes, I mean, would you start?
I think, as a designer, I think it's our responsibility to connect with the culture and the heritage and the experience the brand brings, because it's part of what a customer buys into. Is, in our case, a taste of Sweden. It's buying into an experience. Even if they're stuck in traffic in Shanghai, they can at least sit in the car and feel that they've got a taste of Scandinavia with the light, the smell, the kind of the ambience that's around them. So I would have thought that most luxury brands are trying to deliver a taste of their culture, their heritage, and their history. And that is maybe one thing that you really need to play on, or the brands need to play on to make that strong, because otherwise all the brands just tend to mix together, and you've got to have this strong identity.
And that is in itself an innovation, that you are true to your cultural heritage, and even to stay true to that. I mean, when I say this as innovation, it's just more putting it out. What is innovation really? But it's also rediscover who you really are, the why of your brand. I mean, I think you speak a lot about this guy.
Yeah, and I think actually the whole question of sort of, national identity is an interesting one, because I saw it, I think it was maybe about 10 years ago, something. It was a bit depressing how, as part of Walpole, British luxury, right, how so many British luxury brands actually didn't want to talk about their Britishness particularly, It was a bit of a kind of, not exactly a dirty secret, but they wanted to talk more about, certainly in automotive terms, more about performance and technology and stuff. And I think the issue there, tell me if I'm wrong, was more that you didn't want people to think around the world to think that everything British was old-fashioned, or,
It's certainly struggled with that.
Right.
Yeah. You were almost embarrassed, yeah?
Yeah, exactly, almost embarrassed.
It's true.
And what is so interesting, I've noticed over maybe the last 4 or 5 years, certainly, sorry, I'm talking in British terms now.
Absolutely, I understand.
That there has been a real sort of renaissance in terms of feeling able to talk about British creativity And I think London has played quite a large role in that. And there's been an almost complete unblocking, and Burberry have shown actually commercially how very, very successfully you can, do frankly a lot of the same things that your competitors are doing, but the piece you're, drawing a line around is your Britishness.
Yes.
If you see what I mean.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, what do you think, Aaron? I mean, you obviously are representing quite a lot of brands and unique, and so really speaking about regional, local versus global. I mean, how do you see that being an important part?
Well, I think politics plays a large role in consumer luxury. Look at China. I don't think it's a movement of the Chinese rich away from brands. It's because they have to. Because if they show their wealth, they may disappear. And I think we haven't talked, I mean, we don't want to talk about politics, but politics, I think politics influences luxury consumption, as does obviously economics. But we were doing a TV show, I'll give you an example, we were doing a TV show for NBC in 2008, and when the crash happened, they canned it. No one wanted to talk about wealth, no one wanted to talk about luxury, no one wanted to talk about the rich. And no one really wanted to see, the downfall of the rich in America, right? Or perceived downfall. So the politics is also very interesting, geopolitics.
Absolutely.
And I suppose I can tell you about consumers in each country, but I think we've got someone from Turkey here. Now, the Turkish people, I love them to death, I've just been there, love to show their wealth. There's a social society, as it's got high society, is something that we probably dealt with 15, 20 years ago, and showing wealth. Their magazines are full of rich people, all shagging each other and all that sort of stuff. And, on their mega yachts, in the magazine, on their mega yachts, wearing diamonds, all of that. Well, that's something that they're going through because they're developing.
It's also flashing your cash. I mean, it's very easy to say when you obviously, what you don't have, you want, and I guess this is also influencing luxury in a local context.
And the Russian oligarch movement and all of that, it's all overhyped. It's very subtle. The very, very rich wear, Mickey Mouse watches.
Right.
Yes.
They don't need to show their wealth.
The timeline actually shows this idea also of basically luxury becoming the commodity. I mean, the different time, and it became political, of course, with the luxury law. Yeah. So I think it's a very interesting thing that luxury keep repeating itself, but in different stages. You wanted to throw in a question?
I just wanted to ask you about the super wealthy wearing the Mickey Mouse watches. That's very interesting. And you talked a lot about sustainability and a greater purpose and meaningful values for the future of luxury. Do we need to own a Rolex and a Bentley before we start wearing the Mickey Mouse watches and going to Aman and seeking a greater
experience? That's such a good question.
Or how will it become in the future? Is it up to the luxury brands if they manage to brand themselves with a greater purpose? And you get my question.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Sorry, I actually think it probably takes more energy to make a Mickey Mouse watch than a Rolex. But anyway, and probably more Rolexes are made than Mickey Mouse watches. But anyway, that's the cleverness of a luxury brand. So, for me, I don't know. I think it's about individual choice. If you want to splash your cash, thank God, because the luxury industry needs people to spend money. If everybody decides, oh crap, I need to be subtle and sophisticated and classy and have, this sort of, the whole industry's screwed, right? I mean, your business isn't, because you've got there. But it's the high echelon brands that will succeed, whereas there's a whole ton of brands that rely on that sort of high net worth splash cash.
But if I can have a crack at answering your question, again, I don't want to kind of keep trying to oversimplify things, but actually, at the end of the day, we're talking about a business here. And the key thing that has always driven luxury consumption is that people are willing to pay quite a lot of money for things because they get something in return. And the main thing that someone gets in return for that is they get respect from their peers. So my answer to your question is, it depends whether the people who you want to most impress are wearing Mickey Mouse or Rolex.
That's a good, yeah.
And it's whether as well they want to be seen with their they've got different phases in their life where maybe they've got a hidden kind of a huge yacht and a house that's away, but they actually go to work in a golf. Because it's where they need to be seen with their wealth and where they're interacting with their friends, because their friends know they've got a huge yacht somewhere, but actually it's respected with the people around.
Yeah, but they all bitch
at the
about
time.
them.
Oh, of course
They
they
go,
do.
why is he driving that car? You know, there's a Banksy painting, I don't know if you've seen it, where there's two rabbits, and one rabbit's got a huge plume, a carrot plume, with a tiny carrot underneath the surface, and the other guy's got a huge carrot with a tiny plume on the surface. That sums it up, really. Depends where you are, you know, and what you want to do. But I mean, we all bitch about the guy who's got the mega yacht and drives a beaten up Volkswagen. Why is he doing that? He could afford a chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce. I mean, you know, do we want to end up in a chauffeur-driven Rolls Royce? Well, that's up to you, right? It's personal.
I think actually also that brings us on to another question that I'm begging to ask, and I will ask Anna and Piers there. Obviously, you're also free to join in. Is the future of luxury about experiences of premium? Is that about experiences, or is it about ownership? You spoke a little bit about it before, Piers. You know what? You know, again, because when you ask that question, it's brilliant. I mean, it's almost like if you can afford it all, you don't give a shit, and you actually demonstrate that you don't care. But it's easy not to care if you can afford it. Right. The people who cannot afford it, they care awfully. You know, it's very important to them. But will they cease to want products or experiences? I think we call them, instead of the yuppies from the 1980s, or the yuppies, we call them the yuppies, which are basically the young, experience-seeking individuals. Are they still around? You know, are experiences more important than goods and services? You mentioned that a little bit. I mean, I'd just like us to maybe elaborate a little bit about that, and also hear what you think about that, what you see in your work.
Sure. Can I go first? So it's been interesting being invited here. I've had to think about luxury. I'm an outsider, and as I think about luxury, I've been developing this theory about shortcuts, and maybe luxury brands have always been shortcuts in the way where they've shortcut to the best product, shortcut to status, shortcut to choice, and I wonder whether luxury right now is about shortcut to time. And time is right now the ultimate luxury, and we see that with the resorts, we see that with services, sophisticated services, and we are all looking for time, whether time to claw back time, you know, and get things done as quickly as possible, or to get the most out of my time, my 1 week away or something like that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about a lot.
I agree entirely, and I think, you know, I was saying earlier to you, I think we're of the generation, and I speak for myself, that I'm constantly in touch with the office, connected with friends. People expect responses faster than ever before. You know, I can have an email and within 4 hours they're chasing me for an answer. So I feel that it is a constant go, go, go. And for me, more than anything, I value my time. And I think that's something that remains very true to my brand. It's about giving back value for time. How can we enrich your lives, give you these wonderful experiences in the short week that you have off, or the 2 weeks that you have off? And that also speaks for what you do, Aaron. It's about what can we do that would provide you with something perhaps that you would not do, take you out of your comfort zone, get you close to a community or a culture, give you experiences that perhaps you wouldn't be able to connect with and arrange yourself, or don't actually have the time. You know, long gone are the days before I go now on a holiday where I can read up in advance and think about what I'm going to do. I do that when I'm on the ground. So I think it's really about giving people that time back. And yes, you're able to share it with friends on technology, which is great, and photographs that we all have on our iPhone remind us of the wonderful times that we have off. So when we work hard, it is a constant reminder. But I think time is so, so important.
I think I saw that in Robin's Interior, where we have basically, you talked to me about the simplification of that interior. You know, I have an alternative brand, and it is very complicated. And you talked about how you've really kind of simplified.
Yeah. There's simplicity and of course connectivity, What's going to be the interesting test, and it's coming soon, is the move into autonomous drive, because that's the point where it frees up people's time. I know there's a journey still to go, but it is a bit of a race to the pole. And the brands that do autonomous drive will give the customer a chance to have, maybe you say, in a journey there's 26 minutes that you're travelling and you're sat in traffic, that you could be doing something else that you want to do. And I am interested to see what happens with the luxury market when actually you've got a choice of sitting in a car that you have to be connected with, but you're sat in a very handcrafted, nice, soft, luxurious car, or do you purchase the car that allows you to actually disconnect from the car,
That's a good point.
Start watching your TVs, connecting, emailing, relaxing, eating, drinking. I wonder, the modern customer, whether they all say, that's more luxurious to me, versus the very expensive Rolls-Royce. And this will be a big game changer. And it's a very interesting time, I think, that's ahead of us with autonomous drive.
Absolutely. I just saw a new report out, I think, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they basically, it was just coincidentally, actually, Harold got that just before we left, and very much looking at the automotive industry, looking at that there are far too many cars on the market, so the ones that are there, they need to make a positive difference. So that is going to be the new discourse that any car company will have to join into. When there's too much of a thing, it becomes bad. And we just see like Volkswagen, there might be an orange landing in the middle of your turban there, you know, an advantage for the other car manufacturers out there, because obviously they've literally shown how not to do it, you know. With autonomous driving, yes, it's an amazing thing.
Just before we leave the question of experiences,
yes, of course.
Just a quick kind of thought here is that, you know, I don't think, again, and I know we're not doing this, it's like, you know, product bad, experience good. Because there's been a very interesting kind of like side development from the latest stuff in China about, you know, not the anti-corruption drive and not being seen with expensive stuff, which is there has been a huge surge, as we all know, of mainland Chinese travelling to Europe and travelling around the world. And actually, while they've been in Europe, they've been have been buying quite a lot of stuff for family and friends. But interestingly enough, what they beam back home are their experiences. But their experiences, in fact, are a sequence of pictures taken on their phones where they move from well-known site, Tower of Pisa, you know, X, Y, and Z, as quickly as they can. And those are being sent back home because that is also prestige. That's look, guys, I've been to X, Y, and Z. So there is what I call the opposite of the Aman experience, which is go to as many places as you can.
But are they enjoying it? I mean, I was just in Venice, and I mean, it was literally a fight with the selfie sticks.
Oh yeah.
And you know, it was awful. And you know, my husband and I couldn't believe it, because here we are enjoying ourselves, taking the odd photo, and we were crossing the Grand Canal on one of the traghettos, so one of the local boats, which is a lovely experience to do, and we were just doing it to get from A to B, but there was a couple on there who were all over us with their selfie stick, and I don't think they actually took a moment to look back at where they were and enjoy the experience. They were too busy showing people what they were doing. And you know, I said to I actually felt very, very sad at that moment, because people now are not looking at what is real and true in front of their eyes. It's all about how can I show people where I've been and almost tick them off a list.
Exactly. So it's that sort of consumption, you know, or whether it's product or whether it's experiences. And interestingly enough, I mean, I think if you want an insight into what the future of luxury could be, actually, you could look at food.
Yes.
Because food is one of those fascinating things that, you know, you don't have the price barriers. You don't have to think in the same way. You know, can I really afford this or not? I mean, assuming that, you know, you're not so badly off that actually you have to worry the whole time about can you feed your family. But assuming you've got up beyond that level, right, it is fascinating to see how really people care, more genuinely care, more and more and more, and ask so many more questions about, you know, where did this coffee come from? How was it grown? How was this made? You know, is it the right season? Is it the wrong season? And you can see that translating from what you might call product, so buying food from the right suppliers, through to the restaurant experience, which again is the kind of the experience side of it, which is similarly much more concerned about, you know, what's this chef, and of course you do have all the famous chefs as well, but I mean that is a really interesting bottom-up type movement.
I tend to agree.
Do you
with
think that is like, to riff off something was said in the audience, do you think some of the food movement was enabled because of a healthy debate by journalists to discuss, you know, what's good, what's bad about it? And we talked about how maybe some media kind of is too aligned with luxury brands to really create a healthy discourse.
Yeah, well, actually, I mean, I think that's a really interesting point about the role of media in the whole food thing, because actually, I had lunch with someone today who was telling me about how they, who is a journalist, they sometimes get told that they've got to put certain restaurants in their articles, you know, whereas the really kind of interesting restaurants are all the ones that are completely unknown. I mean, I think the media, I mean, my own feeling is it has been reflecting something much more fundamental when it comes to food. And I think the reason why this is potentially actually quite chilling for the brands is that actually so much of this is about a very wide spectrum of much smaller businesses, smaller suppliers, smaller restaurants that come and go, you know. So I think that's quite...
It's an interesting thing, I have to say, and I think you met a bunch of progressive optimizers, you know, with the selfie stick. We met them out in China too. It was amazing. And it brings me back to also my last question, and then I would like to open the floor to the audience here, is that when we look at luxury, could it perhaps be the Nordic way? I would like to say that it's interesting how Noma, and actually Klaus Meyer, who is behind that, he started, we had a horrible food regime in Denmark in the 80s. We had something called Saturday night chicken. It's out of foil, and it was a little bit of butter with herbs on, and it smelled really good the first 3 times you made it, but after that you knew it was Saturday night chicken. And then you had that horrible movement, you had it here too, where you had like pineapple and everything in your vegetable mix. One got worse with the other, then pineapple with melted
Fish
cheese
Friday.
on.
Fish and chip Friday.
Absolutely. So we didn't have fish and chips the same way in Scandinavia. And suddenly, Klaus Meyer, who was actually the brain behind Noma, the world's best restaurant a few years ago, it's now closed, he trained, so basically his chef trained at Il Bulli and came over to Denmark again and made this. Klaus Meyer was actually, his first job was at Copenhagen Business School, where he came in and said, in order for students to think good thoughts, they need brain food. And he started a whole movement. And the movement was sort of a bottom-up movement. And now we have more in Scandinavia, Michelin stars than ever, and it's a whole different game to over here in the UK. And it brings really in proportion the difference between the regional flavors of luxury. So really, do you think that luxury could be the Nordic way? You said to me before how Chinese enjoy looking at the little Swedish flag. No, but I see that wherever I go as a Dane, I'm a Copenhagen Goodwill ambassador, by the way, so of course I love Copenhagen. I'm from the countryside, so actually I'm a what do you call it, a country bumpkin. So I'm an ambassador for the capital. But I do think, I mean, especially when I'm away from home, I think I sort of favored my own place, the Nordics, but then when I go back, I know that it's not without fault. And I think you're probably the same as being British, but do you find the Nordic way inspiring? Do you think it's a refreshing take on future of luxury, for example?
I think it is, because so more people are looking for a different layered experience now. Before it was just word of mouth, nice restaurant, nice food. Now there's this whole competition of, you know, in Gothenburg there's 926 restaurants and the top 15 are absolutely full all the time to get into. And what you're looking for is the chef, the kind of authentic food, the experience. And so, and it's because it's the quality time as well, you want an experience and not just to eat. You start to really go through and it becomes the luxury product, that night out.
The layered luxury, the connoisseurship.
And I think Scandinavia has got a very good heritage to telling those stories and coming with very, you know, food that has got a story behind it and an ingredients. So it is certainly a big influence, but I think you probably get that in London as well anyway. I mean, it's full
Also
of
in
great restaurants.
Sweden, you have a scheme where actually you're subsidized for your lunch. You could go to the restaurant during lunchtime and enjoy food, and I think that's a really inspiring thing.
That's a funny thing though, because you can go to the same restaurant at lunch and pay the equivalent of £8, and then you go and have the same meal in the evening, and it costs you £50.
And I think that's great.
That's unique, yeah. But I think they offer to a lot of people a nice experience at lunchtime, so you can have a meal with colleagues. But then in the evening, it becomes a night out. So that's what.
What guy to you stands out in luxury, the Nordic way? What do you sort of know? You're taking it. What do you think is interesting? Do you think we could maybe set the trends?
Yeah, I mean, I think. I'm personally passionate about Scandinavian design. Mm-hmm. Danish design in particular, actually.
Thank you.
And have had my NOMA experience with 2 teenagers and, who wouldn't touch a thing. And so, yeah, I'm totally personally, I don't need any persuasion of all of that. I think if you're asking the question, how does that translate into the wider luxury industry? I don't know. I think that if by the Nordic way you mean a slightly more transparent and honest, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
no, but I think
something like that.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And as you say, more multi-layered. I think absolutely. And I think my suggestion that we need to look at food to understand what the future of luxury could be is that actually, if consumers ask that same level of questions that they do about their food, about their bags, boy, that's going to be quite tricky, because you're going to want to know, well, where is this made? Mm-hmm. How is it made? What's the name of the craftsman who made it? Oh, the craftsman, maybe there isn't a craftsman, right?
Yeah.
So I think that this is, I do believe that somewhere along the line, this is going to really shift the industry. Yeah. Funnily enough, I think what it's going to do is it's going to shift it back to where it all started. Well, I mean, obviously not completely, because the whole thing is so much bigger than it ever was before, but essentially that idea of, 120 years ago, yes, the relationship between a customer and a so-called luxury brand. Well, they weren't called luxury brands in those days. They were family-owned businesses.
Yeah. And it was all about sustenance to the individual and basic products for the manufacturer of things, and it's basically back to basics.
Back to basics, and back to a much more personal relationship.
Absolutely.
Where they know you, you know them, you go on a journey together, so to speak. So, I mean, personally, I think that is going to be the huge conundrum, especially for the big guys, in the future.
Love that. Aaron?
Well, Nordic, cool. I think culturally America has taken on a lot of your TV content, and I think it's spread around the world quite rapidly. And I think that has persuaded a lot of people to take a closer look, because, I mean, for me, I am a fan of the design. I'm a fan of the simplicity. Mm. I'm also a big fan of how you treat your people.
Thank you.
So your health service, your education service, all of those things fundamentally. Whether it influences luxury, I actually don't know. I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there, but I don't think people in Scandinavia think about luxury an awful lot.
You're so right, and I think
so whether it influences luxury or not, you don't even think about it yourselves. So you may by default influence it.
And sometimes
because you don't care. So it's the Mickey Mouse watch thing.
Sometimes
you don't care about luxury.
That they Scandinavian design can be sometimes too clean, and you do get quite a sterile atmosphere. It can go that way a little bit more.
It's so perfect that even I sometimes think,
and you live in the world like here, which is really... Thanks very much.
And a quick also from Anna and Piers on that, because then I just like to open the floor as well. But what is your take? I mean,
I agree. I think it's the personal touch, and I think it's the elegant simplicity. And, something that my CEO constantly says, again, I go back to the fact that we just don't use the word luxury. And for him, he always says, when I'm with him, luxury is about money, whereas elegance comes from education, and we really place ourselves in the latter. So And I think that probably strikes true to a lot of the Nordic way of thinking about education and going back to thinking about the roots and why am I eating this, where has it come from, who has made it. So I think it's an understanding.
But you do need money to stay at your gaff.
Yeah. Now we will all get sponsored.
Sorry, but you do.
Agreed.
Elegant money or money?
Two things to say about
Elegant
that.
money.
Elegant money. So Nordic, we won't go.
Nordic money's good.
Nordic elegance. IKEA money.
Two things to say about that, which I think is very interesting. We in Denmark and spread throughout Scandinavia are world renowned for lifelong learning, and we sort of think it's almost our citizen duty to educate ourselves all the time. And not that we're very educated, not like the British at all, and we even all sort of very middle class and don't care too much about. So maybe it's down to the 90% of the Nordics are sort of in the middle class category. There's poverty as well, of course, and there's a lot of things that are not perfect. Maybe I would have stayed. But I guess that getting outside and looking from the outside in, which is basically what I do as a Nordic, has made me realize what the qualities are there. I like the way we don't try to reinvent the wheel. Wegner has already designed over 1,000 chairs. So somebody said in Denmark, there's no need to reinvent the designer chair because chances are Wegner has already designed that chair. So, and also it brings me just to say that nobody's perfect, but it's the social inclusion, and perhaps we've always understood that good quality will last longer than people in a way. So we grow up, but when we went to university, we had the best designer furniture, and perhaps that's part of our DNA and why we feel quite content. I don't believe we're so happy because you don't see a lot of Nordic people smiling. They're super serious and rational.
That's your weather.
But they're content. Yeah, but the weather has nothing to do with actually happiness.
It's dark most of the time.
Sorry?
No.
Absolutely. But then people who move to California, they're still depressed. It's nothing to do with at least according to the behavioral economist.
No, but I think the point I really hammer home is that you care about each other. So when you build a house within your community, you build it properly.
Yes.
Right? And that's through environmentally sensitive, using locally sourced materials. There's a sensibility to the country, and that ultimately will be luxury.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we could carry on like another.
No, we could.
But I just think that just a word of warning, though. I mean, because you mentioned Wegner.
Yes.
I mean, I don't know how often we all see now, everywhere we go, the Wegner wishbone chair. Just to take, I don't know.
But there's 999 other designs,
Okay, but the fact is, it does show that whatever, however brilliant that design was originally, and however incredibly gifted Wegner was, that actually you can overdo stuff as well.
The egg is an even worse example because it was in Big Brother and then in McDonald's. What's the next thing for the egg?
That's okay, isn't it? That's okay.
I'm not
what, McDonald's can't have an egg in it?
No, but they were, covered in plastic, and then they were copies, and they were copies, So that's.
But that's okay. That's the imitation's the sincerest form of flattery, right?
But I think maybe it just goes to show when enough people have it, then the style police turns against it and say this is crap.
Just snobbery.
Yes, of course. Piers, sort of a closing note on the Nordic, and then of course I will open the floor to questions.
It's interesting. I don't know if I can agree or disagree with the Nordic thing. I think the connection with heritage and Volvo, connecting itself to its Swedish and Nordic heritage is very important. But I think there's obviously all these wonderful countries around the world are producing luxury brands that connect with their heritage. I was with a small story. I was in Switzerland a couple of weeks ago, and I did a brainstorm with a company that makes coffee and makes cafes, and we brainstormed what is the future of the cafe concept for them. And all these leadership folks came together and they presented the idea, and they had followed the trends. They followed localization, personalization, environmentalism, and they presented basically a concept that looked like a trendy Starbucks. And it's very associated with, if you were in the northwest of America, you're like, I get that. And I was like, where's the Swiss in it? Where's the machine, the mechanic? I couldn't see any of it, and I think it's important for brands to remember where they're from, and I think it's a great time to kind of reflect that in what's in their DNA, I guess.
As Guy said, back to basic, and I'd like to open the floor here before we close the day. Any questions? Yes.
Today was a very big day for the fashion industry. The marriage between mass and luxury at H&M and Balmain. And some of the shops in Oxford were shut down due to health issue, and women were fighting, and we've seen viral videos today, like mass customers want to go into luxury and buy the Balmain cheap version at H&M. What do you think about this marriage between mass and luxury?
Very successful. And this, by the way, sorry.
But this customers want these pieces, like the luxury customer.
But this is luxury innovating itself.
Mastige.
This is what they're doing. No, it's mastige. It is mastige. Yeah. But you know, that's the new concept. Kanye West doing an Adidas trainer. You know, they were trading hands for $3,000. I was very fortunate. They gave me a pair, and I went out one night. I mean, I'm the least trendy person on earth, and I went out, and I had people offering me $3,000 in cash to take them off my feet.
Did you take it?
No, I was embarrassed. You know, so, but you know what I mean. That this sort of mass. I mean, I don't want anyone to be injured trying to get to a pair of shoes or a scarf or anything like that. I mean, but we've got Black Friday coming up, or whatever it is. I mean, it's going to go nuts again. You know, people stabbing each other for a television.
And it demonstrates.
It's low quality. It's like affordable luxury. What do you call it?
But it still demonstrates that the allure of luxury is still there. It's far from dead, but there is definitely the two ends of the scale when it comes to luxury.
I think, I guess we're into sort of definition games here, but, you raise a really good point, because at the end of the day, this is fast fashion. I mean, that's how I would describe it, right? Yeah. Okay, you've... And Balmain itself was only reinvented quite recently anyway. So, do you know what I mean? So, I mean, I think this is... There's a sort of continuum here, and if today what we mean by luxury is the upper end, let's say, I'm not sure exactly how we're describing it, but then I would say this is something slightly different. I mean, one of my businesses, for example, some people, it's a jewellery business called Monica Vinader. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Okay. But, again, people find it quite hard. They want to pigeonhole what it is. But actually, our view is, we are making good quality jewellery at a good price, and we're trying to appeal to quite a wide group of customers. And so I suppose what I really mean by that is none of our board meetings are we discussing whether we're luxury or not, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. It's interesting to see how they put gold leaf around the sides of the H&M store on Regent Street, and the kind of confusing messages or the blurring of messages. It's that sort of egg in the McDonald's, like, are they allowed to have that sort of fabulousness?
But don't you think that the customers... I mean, it seems to me that the customers are not confused.
Oh, sure, they're playing along. It's all part of the fun as well, yeah?
So
brand power.
Yeah. Everyone understands what they're doing when they...
But I guess my point is that traditional luxury brands sort of think they own that sort of, some of that kind of language.
It's an experiment. It's an experiment for luxury brands to see if they can dip into mass affluent and not damage their brand, because they're co-branding with a mass affluent brand.
But also, as you said earlier, Aaron, and you're absolutely right to say this, is that part of the post-war luxury business model is you have your limited edition stuff up here, but actually most of your business is through the excessively priced.
Of course.
It's back to the Chanel lipstick, right?
And there's a lot of it. Yeah.
It's back to Chanel lipstick.
Yeah, Chanel does perfumes for 60 quid.
Right. May I take a few more questions? Yes.
Yes. I'd like to ask, do you think the social media takes down the value of luxury brands?
No.
No, I don't know.
No, I think it's social media. I mean, I'm going to just throw it out there because I'm not on social media. And I used to follow a lot of people on Twitter, but God, I got bored of it. Is that, sometimes you get the odd idiot that's just, showing their wealth so ridiculously. But actually, there's some millionaire jet setter, sort of la la la. But people, I think, see through it and think it's quite funny and take the mick out of them. But I think social media is actually a great purveyor of luxury because it's accessible. It makes it accessible to people. So that when I say luxury, it could be inside of a restaurant that that they've waited 6 months to get into, or you know, inside the yacht that they're taking a picture of in Saint-Tropez, you know what I mean? So it just makes it accessible. I don't think it devalues the brand, because brands are built on their consumer base, not on, but also awareness in the mass media. You understand? So, you know, their consumers consume, but they still need the mass to aspire.
Any more questions? Yes. Yes. Let me take 2 questions. So yes. Any more? I mean, 3 questions. Okay, 4. We take 4 questions. I'm just going to be standing up in order to just. No, I think it's good because there are going to be lots of. Yeah. Yes, please.
Yes, I run a content and digital agency, and nearly all our clients are luxury brands. And I have noticed when we're having a conversation with a client about what they stand for, I'd say the 3 words that always come up, and they've been talked about today, but they're always the same ones come up, which is, you know, we're about experience, we're about authenticity, and we're about storytelling. And they're talking in the way as if essentially they're almost like the only people thinking this.
Yes.
And actually, you know, I guess if you were talking about authenticity, do you need to talk? Do you need to say that you're authentic if you're authentic?
And that could be inauthentic.
About storytelling, if you actually tell stories really, really well, which is a really difficult thing. And these are brands that might be a travel brand, or it might be a brand that's actually selling stuff, but they're all saying exactly the same thing. And you know, my business is about storytelling, so that's all very good. But I just wonder whether, in a way, if that's what most luxury brands are really aspiring to and what they really think, but there's actually just going to become more of that. And we might actually return to kind of, you know, good old-fashioned glamour, quality, service.
Good point, because we found exactly the same, and then it becomes meaningless just as the word luxury. So we just get back to that. And you answering a question here as well?
I was just going to say, I mean, obviously, I live in Dubai, so it's
tax-free.
Which, again, is, let's say, be careful with.
You might have to get back.
But like from a Western point of view, from what the panel is sort of saying, you know, luxury, it seems to me in the West, in the UK, is a lot more bespoke, and we're a little bit more down, you know, what's the word?
Behind.
Yeah, like a bit low key.
Discreet. Grounded, maybe. Grounded.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Grounded in our way. But do you not think that only kind of exists in maybe, like you said, the Scandinavian markets, the European markets, where it is a little bit more like less is more, and yes, I'm finding out very, very specific places to buy my watch or buy my shoe. But in the more like, let's say, newer money markets, maybe like India or Nigeria or China, like that, they haven't gone through that kind of renaissance.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the case.
So authenticity, storytelling, and a little bit about are we, because we have a longer tradition, and then I'll just take 2 more questions if it's okay, because I want to have all of them in. And there were 2 more questions. Yes.
I've got one for Anne and one for Robin as well. But the one for Robin, the sort of the landscape of the automotive world is changing, and you mentioned autonomous driving. How does luxury fit into that, and how does that affect your design moving forward? And we're seeing a lot of, I just came from Frankfurt a few weeks ago, where a lot of the concepts were almost party lounges, you know, the Mercedes concept stuff. So how does that change, and in a real way as well, moving forward?
And we just take that in a second, if you can. And then you also want to ask Anna a question.
Also, we were talking about the 4 Ps earlier, and how does Planet fit into Aman, and also where is that kind of space in the future for luxury hotels?
So because we have 3 little bit different questions, we're just going to go with the authenticity and storytelling first, and then about local. I don't know who would like to answer that. And then we've got Car, and then we've got Aman. So we just,
I'll do the authenticity very briefly.
Yes.
You're absolutely bang on, and it's because most luxury brands are owned by private equity companies, and they hire business MBA kids to run them, and they're all formulaic.
From Harvard.
From Harvard. And I'm not knocking them, they're bright guys. But the bottom line is that they're like lemmings, they're off a cliff. But you're absolutely on the nail, which is the one thing they all miss and they have to get, is customer service. Customer relationship, bonding and account managing your best clients is absolutely fundamental, and none of them do it really, really well. Some do it, but no one does it really well. They don't invest in it as much. You know, it goes back to that point around the people knowing the products. Yeah? And you as a client, you know, Burberry's best clients spend £35,000 with them on average a year. And they are reasonably good at connecting with them through technology. But you need that one-to-one, you know, bespoke relationship. Yeah? So it doesn't exist in luxury, and that will be a real problem for luxury going forward.
And then you were sort of asking about the retail one, you know, versus here the tradition, and we're a little bit more grounded and low-key versus some of the new economies.
I might just have a quick crack at answering that one. I mean, basically, it was, I think, about 9 years ago, we did a bit of research into that. Basically, recruited some groups of luxury consumers, I mean, quite high-end luxury consumers in a number of different places, from sort of New York, Paris, Tokyo, London, St. Petersburg, Shanghai. And basically, yeah, it's just as you said. I mean, not only is it absolutely clear that people are at different stages of their sort of luxury journey, but also you do get, even within that, within each geography, you get a group of consumers who are more sort of, you know, less about show and more about knowing themselves, which gives them satisfaction. So you get that breakdown anyway. But there was plenty more showing going on in a place like Shanghai. But the interesting thing there is that I think, you know, my whole kind of thesis is that has massively changed and is changing. In other words, yes, of course, there's still a lot of that in mainland China because it's such a huge place and there are so many people still coming up, you know, through the system. But at the top end, you get absolutely some of the most discerning people who actually get bored super fast because they've bought this or they've done that and they're looking for the next thing.
Are you saying that we're all going to go through the same path, though? Is that a definite that we're going to kind of, you know, be flashy and then we're going to be discerning?
This is me sort of being controversial. Is that I think people. I mean, there are some people who, because of their personality, I would suggest, may never feel the need to be kind of super flashy. But if you live in certain environments, and mainland China as well, you are actually required to project status, to project face. It's necessary if you're in business, for example. So that probably makes it more likely. But there's another very interesting little corollary to that, which is for that same piece of research, what we did is we produced a notional watch, you know, well over 100 grand, ticked all the boxes in terms of craftsmanship, complicated movement, etc. The only sting in the tail was that it was made in China. And it was very interesting because the consumer groups in, you know, Tokyo and in London and Paris were all actually really quite interested in that. The group who completely voted it all down were the Chinese.
Yes, but and that's changing.
That is changing, but luxury, I mean, if we talk, again, our definitions of luxury, we haven't quite nailed that. But if we talk about what we broadly understand as the luxury industry, you know, over 80% is still European.
Okay, so there's one more question to go, the last person, but I just wanted autonomous car and about sustainability, what you do about that. So Robin.
Okay, so autonomous cars, I think there's going to be different phases coming in front of us now. There's the concepts, which will show the future vision. There's the companies that will do the actual real autonomous drive. Tesla have already started it. We are certainly very ahead, really. With
the secret out in 2 weeks, right?
That's
you
right.
promised you would share that.
But we've got cars very soon driving around in autonomous drive. And then the next level will be where we bring the two together with luxury and autonomous drive and make this practical use of time, but in a luxurious way. And I can't see the likes of Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Bugatti doing that kind of thing that quickly. They won't take the innovative risk that early. Therefore, what becomes then the new luxury maybe is where we combine autonomous drive technology with a luxurious experience. And I think that's the bit that's going to be really interesting in the future.
And sustainable too.
And sustainable, yeah, of course.
Anna?
On sustainability, I think it's ever more important for the consumer. I think there is definitely, and we will see a rise in holidays that give back. So I think we've noticed that people don't just want to go away and relax in a lovely environment, they actually want to see that they've contributed somehow to that community. So we have various programs, we don't shout about it, a lot of it's very, very discreet, but it would enable our customers or our clients to get involved in the communities, to give back somehow, to donate any cash or time that they so wish. I mean, one that I can reel off the top of my head, in Aman, which is in the Turks and Caicos, we run a turtle tagging program to protect and keep an eye on the species and see where they're going. And we actually enable our guests to go and spend a day. We have a naturist on property, and she runs not only the children's program, so we can start them off from a young age. So it's not about just taking the kids away from their parents, it's about actually educating them about the environment in which they're in. But also as a family, they can go out for the day. It's a full day trip. It costs a fair bit because it all goes to the charity, but they can actually get involved in the turtle tagging themselves. So we run a number of programs such as that, and I think it's not just about giving money back and supporting, but it's first and foremost about the education, so people have the understanding why they're doing it and how we can help.
Just there was one more person who wanted to ask a question. Is it still valid, or are we wrapping up? Happy to leave for our dinner. Yes. I wanted to thank you very much, Aaron, Anna, and Piers, and Guy, and also Robin. It's been an amazing day, and to you.